Do you have a good idea where we're going to start? Looking at the given, what type of reason we might be using? Are you looking down your sheet, or do you already know? You want to use the definition of a midpoint or a midpoint theorem. A couple different ways we could end up doing this. Now remember, you can't use replacement rule with congruency. So if you want to use replacement rule, we want them equals. If we can use the theorem and get them in just the right order, we could use maybe some transitive property, because that works with congruency, but it just kind of depends. So what do you prefer? Maybe we'll go with equals, because I think if we have something as, let's find, if S is right in the middle of Q and P, by definition of a midpoint, those couple are going to be the same. QS is going to be the same as SP. So I think let's go with the measure, and then we can use replacement rule. And maybe I'll point out how you could have used the transitive property, and I'll try to get it lined up just so. So QS equals SP. Those measures are equal. Which one is that? Is that the definition of a midpoint or midpoint theorem? If you're looking for it, you need to pause the video and take a second to look for it. That's fine. But I'm going to go ahead and say it's the definition that says the measures are equal. If you wanted to say congruent, we'd be using the theorem. Well, actually, the second portion of the given is the same type of statement. We can use the same type of reasoning. So P is right in the middle of S and T. So I think that means that those two are going to be the same. Now I'm going to write this with the second part right here, that SP in my first equation. I'm going to start my second one on purpose with that one. Now I could have written it a little differently, but if I do that measure of SP first equal to the measure of PT in that second set of segments that are going to be equal, I could actually use the transitive property instead of replacement rule. Look at there. See how SP ends and then that leads to PT? So if A equals B and B equals C, A equals C, so QS, the measure, would equal PT's measure. If we had done midpoint theorem, it would be congruent. You could actually use the transitive property congruency and be done. You would say QS congruent to segment PT. But maybe we didn't see that far ahead, or maybe you did and maybe you decided to do that. But I have equals, so I can use the replacement rule, or as we just talked about, it could also be transitive property equality. If I use the replacement rule, what I would be doing is I'd be rewriting the measure of QS, and I would be replacing the SP in that first equation. Instead of saying the measure of QS equals the measure of SP, I would be replacing the SP with PT. Well, that's really close to what we wanted. The only difference is I need to change it to congruent by the definition of congruent segments. Congruency means the measures are equal. So if you can show me all the measures are equal for something, that something has to be congruent. And for a segment, there's only one. So when you show the one measure equal, like we did, the one set at length, the one length is equal to the one length, that's all we need to be able to say they're congruent. And that gets us to our conclusion of what we were trying to prove.